Here at Shawn of the South, we're keeping our hands sharp with the help of Case Knives, the sponsor of this episode. A tradition of my family for generations, my granddaddy used to say the best cure for idle hands was to build something. But in today's day and age, everything's done with a click, a swipe, or a tap. But how about we put away the screens and put your hands to work with a Case Knife?
You are listening to Shawn of the South, and I'm your host this evening, Shawn Dietrich, and man, we got a great show lined up ahead of here. Great show lined up ahead of you, coming to you live via the podcast airwaves and the radio waves all over this fine nation. This wonderful group of people you see fixing to play music for you here tonight is Tracy Spencer and Howard Raines, everybody. Tracy Spencer and Howard Raines.
Come on, boys, let's take a little nap. We'll all go down to the Cumberland Gap. Cumberland Gap, Cumberland Gap. We'll all go down to the Cumberland Gap. Cumberland Gap is a mighty fine place. There's streams of whiskey to wash your face. Lay down, boys, and take your ease. Gonna have a battle with the ticks and fleas. Cumberland Gap, Cumberland Gap. We'll all go down to the Cumberland Gap. Cumberland Gap, Cumberland Gap. We'll all go down to the Cumberland Gap. To the wagon and everything's packed. We'll all go down to the Cumberland Gap. Cumberland Gap, oh Cumberland Gap. We'll all go down to the Cumberland Gap. When I die, I'll make my will. I wanna be buried on a Cumberland hill. Cumberland Gap is not my home. Cumberland alone. Cumberland Gap, Cumberland Gap. We'll all go down to the Cumberland Gap. Cumberland Gap, Cumberland Gap. We'll all go down to the Cumberland Gap. Cumberland Gap, we'll all go down to the Cumberland Gap. Cumberland Gap, Cumberland Gap, we'll all go down to the Cumberland Gap. Cumberland Gap, Cumberland Gap, we'll all go down to the Cumberland Gap. Cumberland Gap, Cumberland Gap, we'll all go down to the Cumberland Gap.
our program is brought to you by visitnorthalabama.org, the Mountain Lakes Tourist Association. Visit the 16 North Alabama counties and make this state what it is. Let's talk barbecue here for just a minute. Now, you can visit the Mud Creek Restaurant in Hollywood, Alabama, off County Road 213, and you can get the tenderest pork you ever had. Or how about New Market Barbecue in New Market, Alabama, off Winchester Road? When you visit, tell them Sean sent you, and watch their eyes go blank when they answer who in the Sam Hill is Sean. And if you're sick and tired of having low cholesterol, get to Florence, Alabama, and visit Smokin' on the Boulevard restaurant. You can taste dry rubbed meat, slow smoked over hickory coals. It will change your life, bless your heart, and make a believer out of you. So go visit the North Alabama Barbecue Trail today, because whatever you do, you can do it better in North Alabama. So visit northalabama.org or hashtag VisitNorthAL. Now let's have another tune here from Tricia Spencer and Howard Raines, everybody.
Ain't got no sugar, baby, now. Ain't got no honey, baby, now. Ain't got no use for your red rocking chair. Ain't got no sugar, baby, now. Who'll rock that cradle when I'm gone? Who'll rock that cradle when I'm gone? Who'll rock that cradle and who'll sing this song? Who'll rock that cradle when I'm gone? I'll rock that cradle when you're gone. I'll rock that cradle when you're gone. I'll rock that cradle and I'll sing this song. I'll rock that cradle when you're gone. Can't get along this way. Can't get along this way. It's all I can do for to eat and sleep with you, and I can't get along this way. What more can a poor boy do? What more can a poor boy do? Later in that shade gave her every time I made. What more can a poor boy do? Send you to your mama next payday. Send you to your mama next payday. It's all I can do and it's all I can say. And I'll send you to your mama next payday. Can't make a living with you. Can't make a living with you. It's all I can say and it's all I can do, and I can't make a living with you.
We're going to read you a little bit of our mail this evening, sent in to us from listeners all over this fine nation who had nothing better to do than to put pen to paper and send us their sentiments, or tap out an email, or send us a text on their thumbs, or to send us a letter delivered by legal representation asking us to cease and desist all broadcasts. Our first letter comes from Bill Dorian, Hartford, Illinois. Dear Sean, when are you coming to Illinois? I know it's a long way for you, but I think you'd enjoy it up here, and we have lots of cool things to see, like Chicago, which has two basic seasons, winter and July. Only kidding. Come up here, it will blow your mind. Well, dear Bill, thank you for the invitation. Chelsea Letter, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Dear Sean, I have a few dogs who can't seem to get comfortable without some kind of playing in the background, some kind of sound playing in the background, like a TV or something like a radio. And I've found that your podcast is extremely beneficial and helps them to relax. And in some cases, it helps them go straight to sleep. So thank you, Sean, for helping my dogs chill out and fall asleep. Well, dear Chelsea, my mother would be so proud of me. Judd, Mobile, Alabama. Dear Sean, I'm a recent college grad and a pastor in training. I grew up in a Baptist church much like the ones you talk about on your show. Flannel graph Bible stories, potluck, Southern gospel, and hymns dominate my early memories. I also went to a small school where I was exposed to wise and kind people from a variety of denominations. This last March, my grandfather passed away. He was a Baptist deacon and a gospel singer. Your stories about old times and old men and old beautiful hymns were a great comfort to me surrounding his homegoing, his funeral. I'm an intern at a very modern church, the kind with big screens and coffee in the lobby, but we still sing many of the old hymns. And I know if my papa ever looks down at me, he's proud. So thank you for your stories. Thank you for helping me remember my roots. Sincerely, Judd. Gretchen Thompson, Virginia Beach, Virginia. There are many times when I'm watching television and I think to myself, what is this garbage? It seems like all the good movies and all the TV shows and all the past things that we used to like to watch so much are gone. What has happened? How can something so good have changed into trash so fast? It wasn't that many years ago when TV was still good and people were still nice to each other. So I have gone to podcasts. I'm way happier as a result. Podcasts are obviously easier for the layman to produce, so there are actually some good ideas and good content out there instead of fat cat corporate guys making shows that will please their sponsors and earn them a lot of money. So that's my comment. Thanks for being part of the podcast movement. Your friend Gretchen. Well, dear Gretchen, I thank you for that comment. Thank you for your positive outlook on the world. Maybe I would suggest a good fiber supplement. Dan Vanderwood, Lansing, Michigan. Dan Vanderwood, Lansing, Michigan. Sean, I need your help interpreting something. Last weekend, I was driving to work listening to your podcast about old music, and you were wrapping it up. I'm not lying when I tell you this. As you belted out the last line of His Eyes on the Sparrow, and I know He watches me, I saw a brown, black, and white object come flying out of the cornfield next to my car. You know what happened next? It was a feathery explosion on my windshield. Rest in peace, little sparrow. So what does that mean for me, Sean? I have to be honest, I laughed the rest of the way to work, and I have been asking everyone all week for their interpretation. They told me that I should write to the man himself, so here I am. If I'm honest, Sean, the last year of my life has felt a lot like that sparrow hitting the windshield over and over and over again. I moved back to Michigan after 3 years in Tennessee and 13 years in Louisiana. I miss my adopted home state of Louisiana every single day. Your podcast brings me back to the bayou each week, and I'm grateful. I don't think that I'll stay in Michigan much longer, not because of their birth control inducing accents. I'll give a few people in the back a chance to work on that one. But, he says, but maybe I will, depending on your interpretation of the sparrow explosion on my windshield. What do you think it means? Your friend Dan. P.S. Say hi to my mom Mary for me in Chattanooga. She listens each week too. Her birthday's coming up in October, and I know it'd be a great surprise for her to hear this. Well, dear Dan, I wish I was good at interpreting dreams or little events that happen in daily life, but the truth is I Like my father used to say, I don't know my butt from page 8 in the phone book. What I do know is that little things seem to happen all over the place in daily life, and they seem like coincidences when they happen, but we know that they're not. We know that they're not because law enforcement who are trying to solve murder mysteries always say that there are no coincidences. And I learned that on Murder, She Wrote. Now, I'm serious. I've had a few things happen to me in daily life that have blown my mind. A few weeks ago, I was given a talk to some people about my father, my late father, and I always believed that my late father reminded me of a blue heron. And it was about, I don't know, an hour after that, I was on the beach walking, and I saw a giant blue heron land right in front of me. So what does it mean? What does it mean? I don't know. That's the answer. But it must mean something. Ann J. Harrison, Alabaster, Alabama. And I know this one here. She's a friend. You know, Sean, I'm upset that my husband Mike didn't get my 50th birthday mentioned on your podcast back in July. I'd totally missed that you were taking a sabbatical from the airwaves. I just wanted to say thanks for making me feel like I've gone back to better days listening to your show. It takes me back to when my grandparents were alive and I'd watch Hee Haw and Lawrence Welk at the house and drinking Dr. Pepper floats. Oh boy, those were the days. Maybe watch Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. Your stories paint a picture of a life that I miss in Aliceville, Alabama. Life was simple. Grandparents were precious. As Eddie Money once put it in his lyrics, I want to go back and do it all over again, but you can't go back, oh no, oh no. Lovingly, your friend, Adam J. Thank you for the comment, Adam J. I would agree with everything you said there. Pete Hart, Merida, Georgia. When I was a kid, I was scared of everything, even my own shadow, literally, Sean. I don't know why I was that way, but I just was. I was always worried that I was getting sick. I was always worried that I was gonna befall something terrible. And I went through a period where I used to wash my hands all the time. And then I got into checking my door locks sometimes 10, 12 times in an hour. Anyway, then I had a baby boy, my son. And I saw some of my fears being sort of projected onto him. And I was worried about him getting sick. And I was worried about something bad happening to him. And I was worried about all sorts of things in life that I had never been worried about before. My fears had quadrupled. And I didn't want him to grow up that way. Not the way I did. So I started going to a therapist to help me deal with these irrational fears, and he really challenged me to do some work on myself. And I have been, for 2 years, trying to get over what you would, I suppose, call OCD. But I don't want to label it because I don't like labels. They don't seem to leave much room for unlabeling yourself when the time comes, and my time is coming. Because I have done some major work on myself, and I'm getting better. So I'm trying to let my son play outside in the mud, enjoy his childhood, and get dirty, and not wash his hands like I used to worry about, or worry about getting sick, or be afraid, or not be able to sleep by himself without being scared. I have grown up as a prisoner of my own making. I kept myself in a little jail cell of my own fears, but not anymore. I'm living life. And I'm enjoying it for the first time ever. And I know this is probably a weird letter for you to read over the air, but I just thought maybe you could benefit from knowing that your entertaining is a diversion to me and to my daily life, which is something I need a break from sometimes. Life is not for sissies. My son and I share the same birthday. Would you wish us a happy birthday for me? Thank you for taking the time to listen. It means a lot. Your friend, Pete. Well, dear Pete, and dear everybody else who wrote to us, thank you for the heartfelt words and for the words of kindness and for telling us exactly what you're thinking when you're writing about your excitements and your triumphs and your fears and all sorts of little things. It's been said once before, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. But that's what's so scary, is fear itself. But I want you to know, Pete, you and your son and anybody else who gets afraid sometimes, we're all members of the same team. And when you're scared, it's okay to talk about it, because after all, there ain't nothing in this world to be scared about. Except, of course, snakes. And brown recluse spiders. And, of course, certain breeds of fundamentalist Baptists. So thank you from everybody here who wrote to us, and happy birthday to you and your son and anybody else whose birthday might be this week. Happy birthday from everybody here tonight. And that's letters from our listeners. Letters from our listeners. Let's have another tune here from Tricia Spencer and Howard Raines. Give it up for Tricia Spencer and Howard Raines, everybody.
As I rode down to Tom Sherman's barroom, Tom Sherman's barroom one morning in May, 'twas there I spied a gay handsome cowboy, all dressed in white linen as cold as the clay. I knew by your outfit that you were a cowboy. That's what they all say as I go riding along. Come gather around me, said the jolly cowboy, and listen to me, comrade, said he. It's each and only learn and take warning, and quit your wild roving before it's too late. 'Twas once in the saddle I used to go dashing. 'Twas once in the saddle I used to be gay. First taking to drinking, and then the card playing. Got shot through the breast and now I must die. My gray-headed mother, and whisper then lowly to my sister so dear, and don't forget the words that I told you, for I'm a gay cowboy and I know I've done wrong. Go beat your drum loudly and play the five slowly, and play it in marches as you carry me along. Oh, take me to the graveyard and roll the sun over me, for I'm a gay cowboy and I know I've done wrong. 6 jolly cowboys to balance my coffin, 6 pretty girls to sing me a song. Oh, take me to the graveyard and roll the sun over me, for I'm a gay cowboy and I know I've done wrong. water, a glass of cold water, this poor boy cried. When I returned, the spirit had left him and gone to the giver, this poor boy had died.
Well, last week in my hometown, it was very, very hot. It was so incredibly hot that people were sitting on their porches and they were doing strange things, by which I mean they have these new battery-powered fans that people have ordered from online supply companies, and they have them strapped around their neck. And this fan comes up from a brace that touches your chest, and it blows into your face, and your face stays more or less dry, but the rest of your body gets completely saturated. These were the kinds of days when growing up inside the churches of my youth, the clapboard churches that you can still see out there on the rural roads with the tin rusted roofs and the steeples that are just a little bit off center. People would sit in the pews and they would fan themselves with these paper fans with wooden handles, and they would just go a mile a minute. And on the backs of these fans would be a picture of Jesus himself, and on the front of the fan would be Morton's Funeral Home. So just in case you ever had any questions about where you would be spending your final earthly moments, there it was, Morton's Funeral Home. Along with the good old picture of Jesus who had his two fingers up in the air, extending a blessing to all mankind, and the blessing was, please, please, please don't die of heat stroke. Which is a very real threat, a very, very real threat. A few weeks ago there was an old man in town who had been out and he'd been cleaning his gutters, which is something we normally do in the fall, but he was doing it in the summertime because he's a strange man. He was cleaning his gutters, he got heat stroke, he had to be taken to the ER. The ER nurse said that he needed fluids in a bad way, and she pumped him full of saline solution, sent him home, and it only cost him $900 with his insurance deductible. But that's Florida in the summer. We get so hot that you can boil water just putting a pan of water on the hood of your car. It is miserable temperatures. But we always look forward to that day of the week, the day of rest. Sundays in small areas are the pinnacle of every week. And in order of these to strictly observe this day of rest, in order to do this, Sunday must be the most exhausting day of the week, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's supposed to be real relaxing, but this is the day when everybody just goes buck nuts. It's a crazy day. I could walk you through a Sunday and it would just wear you out listening to it. We wake up real early, and we got to get our best clothes on. We got outfits that are only reserved for Sundays. I got a leather belt that I bought in Andalusia before a funeral at the J.C. Penney. I never wear this belt other than funerals, weddings, or church. And I got me a pair of Hush Puppy shoes I also bought from that same Andalusia store, J.C. Penney. And I wear these Hush Puppies Sundays, funerals, or weddings. You get dressed, put that blue serge sport coat on that your mother makes you wear, and you go to church. Wherever you go, there aren't many choices in my small place. We got the Methodist Church, we got First Baptist, and we got way out in the sticks, the Pentecostal Church. These are three different congregations. If you are interested in another kind of way, you're going to have to go somewhere else. You're going to have to drive somewhere else to go observe your service. There's one Catholic who lives a few streets over from me, and as far as I know, he's the only Catholic in town, and he's kind of an interesting guy. He's got a pet squirrel, and he talks to his John Wayne serving platters that are mounted on the wall. And so there's no need for a Catholic church nor a Presbyterian church. Presbyterians usually just come on to the Baptist church because, like my mother used to say, a Presbyterian is just a Baptist who wants to drink but can't afford to be Episcopalian. So they come to the Baptist church, and a lot of the people who were raised in other denominations like Church of Christ or other various denominations will go to the Methodist church. And the first part of the day is Sunday school. Sunday school, where I'm from, we start with Sunday school before we have our church service. This is like the warm-up. You know, you're never going to see track athletes get out there on the track and just start running in big fast circles. They got to warm themselves up. And so everybody goes to Sunday school. And the whole church campus, be it the Methodist church or the Baptist church or the Pentecostal church, is filled with people who are going to Sunday school. You got the adult men's Bible study. They meet in the back room, the bridal vestibule, which is used for weddings and getting the bride and the groom ready. And the women, they meet over in the gymnasium, and they all get together and have their Sunday school meeting. And the kids all get together in the nursery area, and they meet, and Miss Marshall teaches them. And she starts every week. She has been doing this since William Taft was president. She will start with the book of Revelation, every single class. Sometimes she would just go through the entire book of Revelation. She will never get to the happy stories that involve Jesus walking on the water, calming the storm, or the loaves and the fishes, or the seeds scattered by the road, or the good parables that make you happy. She will save all those stories in order to illustrate the book of Revelation, because in her experience over many, many years of dealing with children who are not her own, who are prone to rambunctious behavior, in her experience, it's better to scare the stuffing out of a child and put the fear of God in them to strike terror into the hearts of young children. This is her philosophy. And that's what they do at the Methodist church. Now, the Baptist church, we do much the same thing with our children in Sunday school class, only we don't get to the feel-good stories until a child is in his mid to late 40s. Because this childhood exists beyond Sunday school. We've got to make sure they behave in and out of class. So after Sunday school, everybody finishes their Sunday school lesson on the flannel boards that are on the stage and all that. They finish their lesson, and then it's time for church. You go to church, you file into that large sanctuary, which isn't very large really, but compared to that tiny little bridal vestibule you were just in, where you could smell Brother Howard's B.O., because he was sitting so close to you, because Brother Lauren was on the other side of him, and he was smelling Brother Lauren's B.O. You gather in that little room, and you know exactly what hell is going to be like. And then they let you out to go to the sanctuary, a little chapel, and then you realize what it will feel like when you are ushered past the pearly gates into heaven. And you go into that church. In the Methodist church, you got to get to the sanctuary early. You got to get there early to get a good seat in the back. Because the Methodist church fills up from the back to the front. You see, a Methodist is an interesting individual. He will not voluntarily sit up front no more than he would voluntarily have appendix surgery. They're humble people and quiet people. Whereas the Baptists, over across the street, we will fight each other using our fists and in some cases switchblades to get the front pew. Because in that front pew, you are closer to the pulpit. If you are closer to the pulpit, you are closer to God somehow, and you do not have to walk down during the invitation. The invitation, which is the height of every Baptist service, the part of service that lasts for a long time. And then the preacher will get up, they'll read the announcements, sing the songs, preach the sermon. And after service is over, the Methodists kind of file out of their building. and they get into their cars, if they drove cars or if they walked, but they mostly get into their cars, and they got to be real quiet, because across the street, they can still hear singing coming from the Baptist church. And so they're very careful not to slam their doors or laugh too loud at various jokes that are being told on the lawn, various jokes, many of which I will not tell you here tonight. They're quiet because they hear that singing come from the Baptist church, and they know that the Baptists are still involved in the invitation, which is the part of the Baptist service where the preacher stands at the pulpit and he calls somebody down to the front to repent. The only problem is in this little Baptist church where all 39 people sit shoulder to shoulder, everybody knows each other, and there ain't no sinners in church this week. And so everybody just kind of waits around. We're expecting somebody to walk down front and confess a heinous crime, whether they committed it or not. That doesn't even matter. Just go down front, confess this heinous sin to the preacher. And even if you happen to be the 90-year-old church organist, just go down there and confess it so that we can all, we're hungry. I've starved to death in church at least 10 times in my life. After this, the Baptists get out of the building and they shake each other's hands, and everybody talks in the parking lot for about 3 hours until the church administrator comes out onto the parking lot pavement and says, "Listen, everybody, the church is closing. You ain't got to go home, but you can't stay here." And meanwhile, over in the sticks where the Pentecostals are meeting, they are still on the pre-service announcements. Because the Pentecostals out there in the woods take a long time in service. They do everything 10 times slower than the Baptists and the Methodists. But for the Baptists and Methodists now, we're leaving our church. We're in our cars. Old men are driving old women home. And now you come to the spot of the day that we refer to as Sunday dinner. Sunday dinner. This truly is the greatest part of everybody's week. Now, in other parts of the world, they would call a meal taking place after church lunch. But this is not true in my town or in my place, part of the world. We call it dinner, Sunday dinner. What you would eat after dinner would be supper. Now, modernization is taking place, and everybody calls it lunch now, and everybody calls it, supper or dinner. But on a Sunday, everything's different. On a Sunday, you eat Sunday dinner. You do not eat Sunday lunch unless you live in Birmingham somewhere, and you live in Mountain Brook and have more money than you can shake a stick at. And sometimes you even attend online church, and instead of saying or giving a tithe, you go ahead and click a little button on PayPal to give your donation. Yes, maybe you would call it lunch, but to us, we call it dinner, Sunday dinner, and this is a town-wide event. This is the piece of the week when everybody gets together at somebody's house, some queen mother's house, who has been cooking good and greasy, starchy food for 10 presidential administrations at least. And everybody files into her house, still wearing their church clothes, neckties just loosened a little bit, but not off. And blue serge jackets thrown onto the guest bed, and people walk in and they shake hands and they mingle, and there's going to be 2 little glass jugs. You got a glass jug of sweet tea, and you got a glass jug of sweet tea. Everybody talks and waits and mingles together. And at some point in time, it's time to say the blessing. The blessing. And everybody holds hands and stands around the room. And it was Bill who said the blessing last week. Bill is the town's one and only Presbyterian. And we don't know how Presbyterians pray, because we hardly ever hear it. And it's the first time anyone's ever asked Bill to pray, but he stood on a chair. And he got up in front of everybody. Everybody held hands, and everybody was in all sorts of different rooms, and we couldn't all fit in the dining room or the den. So people were in the dining room, the kitchen, the den, and they were holding hands kind of like a human chain, a serpentine belt that just wove in and out of the rooms. And they all held hands, cross-handed, over the shoulder handed, under the legs handed, one hand in front of them, one hand behind them. Everybody holding hands. Brother Bill stood on the chair and said, "Come. Come, Lord Jesus, be our guest. May this food be truly blessed." And then he said poetic words that we Baptists don't say. We don't speak in poetry. We find it to be showy. I mean, we're the kind of people who don't believe in showy things. But this man was showy, and it was beautiful. Loved to hear it. And then we all sit down around a table, Methodists, Baptists, old people and young people, soldiers and clergymen, and rich people and poor people, and manual laborers and landowners, and people with white-collar jobs and blue-collar jobs. This is the time of week when everybody gets together and they gripe about the hot weather. It's our glorious pastime to sit around and cuss the weather. And we all eat together. And we all enjoy the glow that comes on a Sunday dinner. And after supper, after we all let out a satisfied moan of delight and have finished doing the dishes, we bask in the glow of our stewardship and spiritual servitude, and we enjoy the glow that is felt on a Sunday after Sunday dinner, and this pleasant exhaustion, knowing that we are completed, and we do what all Baptists and Methodists do: we get dressed and we go back to church. Yes, the sun has set, and we ought to be at home lying down and read a book, but we are back in church because this is what we do. Now, everybody usually goes to the Methodist church because Pastor Lewis has been at the Methodist church for a long time. And when he got to the Methodist church, Pastor Lewis used to be a Baptist, a free will Baptist, a long time ago. And like most free will Baptists, he knew about the glories of night church, which the Methodists at the time didn't really know much about. And so he initiated night service because he had fond memories of sitting inside an old clapboard building with the windows open and the crickets outside screaming while a preacher delivered a good sermon. And so he decided to make it worth everybody's while, and he made these services really something fun. He invites out-of-town speakers to come in. We've had all sorts of people. And so people come from all over, from as far away as 3 counties away, just to hang out at the Methodist church for a Sunday night service, because you know you're going to get something worth seeing. He brings in out-of-town speakers. He brings in gospel quartets, musicians, string bands. Once, a few weeks ago, there was a traveling group from Atlanta called the Atlanta Zoo Exotique. And they were a traveling troupe of people who bring farm animals, and they reenact different scenes from the Old and New Testament right there in the sanctuary. That was something else. We got in there and we watched the janitor and the custodian cover the entire sanctuary in burlap and newspaper. And then we saw camels and donkeys and sheep and goats. And people applauded and clapped when they reenacted Jesus riding into Jerusalem, side saddle on the donkey. And then for the grand finale, Jesus himself came riding down the center aisle on a short white miniature Shetland pony with a gold saddle. And he was waving at everybody. And people came unglued. They stood and they gave a 4-minute long standing ovation, and Jesus took a bow and then ran out on his little Shetland pony out to the foyer, and he circled around, and for the encore he ran straight back down the center aisle, galloping in a little canter. And when he got to the pulpit area, he disembarked from his horse and he quoted one entire soliloquy from Shakespeare's Macbeth. Oh, it was good. Week after that, they had a traveling group of retired acrobats from the circus who also played the accordions. They played Rock of Ages and they played In the Garden Alone. They did not do acrobatics and accordion at the same time, though one of them looked like they could because she was incredibly flexible. And after Sunday night service, everybody has a fine glow on their face because there's something about the cheer of a Sunday that staves off and holds at bay the blues that come on Sunday. And so when people drive home, they have this happy weariness to them from spending an entire day circulating around a Sunday. And when they get home, they take off their blue serge jackets and their slacks. They fold them up and they hang them on their hanger. And the women take off their green background with daisy print dresses and they hang them on the hanger and they crawl into bed and they flip off the light and they're asleep before their head even hits the pillow. And they're sort of smiling, at least inside they are, because the community comes together to fight off the moderate depression that Monday brings, because daily life will wear you down and it will get you tired. But we always have a Sunday to pick us up. And when the sun sets, and when it is low, hanging far below the horizon, and the frogs are singing, and the crickets are blaring their chorus to western Florida, and the night sky is purple, and the twinkling stars hang above the whole world like a crossword puzzle, waiting for you to trace the lines in between them and figure out what the night sky is saying. And while this is all happening, out there in the Pentecostal church in the woods, they're still dancing and singing and in some cases flinging rattlesnakes at each other. Because churches bring us together and make life fun. They make life fun. Don't forget to attend Miss Marshall's Sunday School class next week. And when you come to the covered dish supper this Wednesday night, bring your best because the Lord expects your best. Hey, thank you very much for having me this evening. It's been a wonderful pleasure. Appreciate it very much.
Hey, thanks for listening to Sean of the South. Been your host today, Sean Dietrich, and man, it's been a bona fide pleasure if I do say so myself. This episode was brought to you by Case Knives, a tradition of my family dating back to my granddaddy, who once said the best way to cure idle hands was to build something, so keep your hands sharp with a case knife. And by Folklore Brewing and Meadery, quite literally the best brew in Alabama. Visit folklorebrewingandmeadery.com. The music heard behind me today was Trisha Spencer and Howard Raines. Trisha Spencer's a Kansas fiddler who grew up learning the old-time tradition from her grandparents, and Howard Raines is a native Texan and fourth generation to play on his fiddle. Together, Spencer and Raines have performed and taught nationally and internationally, preserving and building upon the traditions of their unique region. Do yourself a favor and visit spencerandraines.com and download their new album today. You will not regret it. To find out anything more about what I do, you can visit SeanOfTheSouthShow.com, and there you can find archived episodes dating back to our very first episode all the way to this episode, which you just heard, though I don't know why. You must have a terrible taste in podcasting. While you're there, I hope you take the time to drop me a line to me about your birthday announcements, wedding invitations, and potluck socials, and I'll do my best to read them over there for my friends, because I love to do that sort of stuff for my friends. And speaking of friends, why be the best when you can let everybody else be the best and you can have all the fun? Adios.